All right, today we're diving into an explainer that is literally going to completely challenge how you look at every single decision you make. We're exploring the highly radical, totally paradigm shifting ideas of philosopher Yuji Krishnamurti, and we're specifically zeroing in on his concepts of action and morality. So, if you're the kind of person who loves dissecting complex philosophies and really unpacking the deep mechanics of human behavior, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to examine a perspective that essentially takes everything we are taught about being a good person and just turns it completely upside down. Yuji Krishnamurti is famous for this uncompromising approach to human psychology. He takes these deeply ingrained spiritual concepts and strips them all the way down to their barest biological bones. Morality is a neurological problem. I want you to just sit with that statement for a second. I mean, from the absolute moment we're born, society teaches us that morality is this highest human virtue, right? We're told it's the pinnacle of our spiritual or social achievement. It's the very thing that supposedly separates us from animals. But Yuji makes a claim here that is just entirely disruptive. He argues that our whole concept of right and wrong isn't a virtue at all. Instead, it's essentially a neurological issue. To really wrap your head around this, think of it more like a conditioned reflex loop in your brain, rather than some divine spark of goodness. According to the source material, this glitch is caused entirely by social conditioning. He's taking something we've always considered profoundly philosophical and reducing it to a mechanical, neurological short circuit. So that begs the question, what if your moral compass is actually destroying your life? Now, I know that sounds completely counterintuitive because we rely so heavily on that compass. But just consider a scenario where you're agonizing over whether to tell a friend a difficult truth, or you're calculating exactly how to be the perfect, most helpful person in a room. What if the friction of that agonizing, that endless weighing of good versus bad, is the exact mechanism holding you back from truly living? The core idea we're unpacking today is that the very tool you use to safely navigate the world might actually be the anchor that's weighing you down. Let's dive right into Section 1, the morality problem, beyond right and wrong. Yuji Krishnamurti makes a really bold claim here. Distinguishing right from wrong actually destroys the natural expression of life. The source outlines his belief that the problem isn't simply making a quote-unquote wrong choice. The problem is the very faculty of moral judgment itself. Just the mere act of pausing to distinguish between what's right and what's wrong interrupts your natural flow. Imagine a little kid running freely, completely absorbed in the moment, until an adult suddenly yells, "Stop!" Is that how a good kid behaves? That sudden halt, that forced self-reflection, it acts like a wedge driven right into the middle of human spontaneity. The argument here is that this constant filtering effectively destroys your ability to live naturally and authentically. Let's break down the exact mechanics of this internal conflict step by step. Imagine you're walking down the street and you see someone drop a $20 bill. Step 1 is the initial impulse to act. It's natural, it's immediate, maybe your hand just reaches out to grab it and hand it right back. But then comes step 2, questioning the action before or after you take it. You pause, you think, wait, they dropped it, maybe I should keep it, but is that wrong? What's the right thing to do here? According to the source, it is this exact moment of questioning that leads directly to step 3, the creation of a moral dilemma. The dilemma didn't exist in the action itself, right? The action was just picking up a piece of paper. The dilemma was entirely manufactured by your hesitation. The act of questioning generates the conflict. Moving on to Section 2, the frightened moral man, defending the self. So if questioning our actions creates all these terrible dilemmas, why do we hold on to morality so tightly? Well, the source notes Yuji's observation that the moral man is actually a frightened man. We normally associate morality with courage, strength, and conviction, don't we? We think of highly moral people as these brave pillars of the community. But this perspective flips that entirely on its head. It suggests that our reliance on strict rules is actually a symptom of deep-seated fear. We cling to morality because we're terrified of what might happen if we actually let go of the guardrails. It's a fear of the unknown, a fear of chaos, and honestly, a fear of who we might be without a strict set of rules telling us exactly how to behave. The frightened man uses moral rules purely as a defense mechanism. It operates exactly like psychological armor. But here is the absolute deepest philosophical cut presented in the material. He is using this armor to defend a self that does not actually exist. To put it simply, think of the ego or your sense of self kind of like a shadow on the wall. It looks real, but there's no actual substance to it. And yet, we spend our entire lives building these incredibly complex moral fortresses just to protect that shadow. We construct all these rules about how we should be perceived, what makes us a good person, and what threatens our identity. And because we're constantly measuring ourselves against these impossible artificial rules just to protect an illusion, we end up living a life filled with apologies. We are endlessly apologizing for failing to meet standards that we simply made up in the first place. This brings us to Section 3, the internal policeman, holy systems as control. Consider this concept of the policeman inside you. It's a really powerful, honestly almost unsettling metaphor. The source defines this as an internal monitor created by religious and holy systems to constantly judge and police human behavior. Now, it's important to note Uji's stance here is highly critical. He views all holy systems, whether that's formal religions or just strict societal moral codes, as constructs designed essentially for control. The absolute genius of these systems is that they don't just police you from the outside. I mean, that would be way too expensive and difficult to maintain. The ultimate, most efficient form of control is getting you to police yourself from the inside. Religious people have simply created a policeman inside of you. Elaborating on this quote, the whole idea is that you no longer even need an external authority figure watching your every move, because society has successfully planted that authority right inside your own mind. Think about a time you were sitting in a meeting and you really wanted to speak up or maybe express some genuine frustration, but suddenly this internal voice chimes in and goes, "Stay quiet, be polite, that's inappropriate." Just reflect on your own choices today. How often was your internal policeman dictating your actions, telling you to stop, to feel guilty, or to second-guess a completely natural human impulse? And finally, Section 4, action in the natural state, unquestioned existence. We're looking at a massive shift in paradigm when we compare these two states of being. On one side, you have the moral man. As we've explored, this existence is heavy. It's frightened. It's constantly defending a non-existent self, anxious, and just full of apologies. It's a slow, burdened way to live, completely full of friction and second-guessing. But contrast that starkly with the natural state on the other side. It is fast. It is light. Action is automatic. It is completely unquestioned. In this state, there's no pausing to agonize over the rightness or wrongness of a move, and there are absolutely no regrets after the move is actually made. It is an existence of pure, unhindered momentum. True morality, in this radical view, is actually unquestioned action. Because of this, a person in their natural state has absolutely no need for moral codes whatsoever. The reason? There is no center, no ego left to judge the action. When you strip away the social conditioning and you fire that internal policeman, you are left with pure action. This is what can be described as biological immediacy. Think of it like accidentally touching a hot stove. You don't pause to consult a moral compass or a holy book to decide if pulling your hand away is the right thing to do. You just instantly react. Your biology takes over. In this state, your interactions with the world function with that exact same immediate, unhesitating clarity. And because there's no judging ego sitting back and evaluating the performance, your actions completely lack regrets or apologies. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. Could you survive without the policeman inside? Like, could you actually function in this modern world if you completely let go of your moral compass, stopped relentlessly questioning your actions, and just allowed yourself to exist in the natural state? It is definitely a terrifying proposition for the frightened moral man, but perhaps, at least according to the philosophy of UG Krishnamurti, letting go of that control is the absolute only way to truly live.